Hi, and welcome to Monday's Delight. Excited to, as it were, share the word of the Lord with you every Monday. And I'm happy you have made room for me to enter into your space. We are moving into a new series I've entitled Living Like Jesus Christ, or Embracing the Habits and Values of Jesus Christ. We will be looking at this subject over a period of 5 weeks, and I will try and punch some attitudes and attributes and habits of Jesus, and then we'll pick them one at a time, and we'll look at 5 attributes or attitudes of Jesus, and then we'll see what the Lord will do. Remember, this is more like a practical ministry, so I would entreat you to follow me, try and put them into practice, and I believe that God will see you through. So our foundation text for this, our theme that is going to run for the next 5 weeks, living like Jesus, or embracing his habits and values. Part 1, our foundation text will be 1 John chapter 2, the verse number 6, and I read, "He who says he abides in him ought himself also walk just like he walks." So if you proclaim that you love Jesus Christ and you want to do things like him, you ought to, as it were, pick up the habits of Jesus and live with them. So today in we'll be looking at 5 attributes or habits of Jesus. The first one is solitude, the second one is prayer before engagement, the third one is compassion, and then we'll look at reference to scriptures, and then service to mankind. So today, being the part 1, we are looking at solitudes. I'm sure you're asking, what exactly is solitude? Solitude means being alone, quiet and undistracted. For Jesus, it meant withdrawing to a quiet place to pray, recharge, and connect with God. So you need to always have a quiet place to, as it were, pray, to, as it were, recharge, to, as it were, connect with God. And these things we ought to do like Christ did. Listen, solitude in itself comes in some form, and I want to bring that one to you. Solitude comes in reflection, solitude comes in prayer, solitude comes in recharge, and solitude comes in focus on God. So you ought to have a time to reflect, you ought to have a time to pray, you ought to have a time to recharge, you ought to have a time to focus with God. Solitude is what we are looking at. Here are 3 things we'll be looking at. But first of all, let's look at Luke chapter 5, the verse number 16, and that would be our supporting scripture for this solitude. Luke chapter 5, the verse number 15 and 16, and I read, "However, the report went around concerning him all the more, and great multitude came together to hear and to be healed by him of their infirmities. So he himself often withdrew into the wilderness and prayed." So it comes to a time you ought to ignore the crowd. The distractions are too many. Ignore the crowd. Get to a place of solitude and make sure that you hear from God. Make sure that you see from God, and make sure that God gives you direction. We all need this one. I can entreat you. The distractions are many. Find time and withdraw from the crowd, and, as it were, engage God. I want to share some few things with you, and then we can look at it. 4 essential benefits of solitude. When you ignore the crowd and you move into a place of seclusion and you engage God in prayer and you reflect and you open your spirit up to listen to God, these are 4 benefits, and I want to just quickly share them with you, and then we'll call it a day. The first one is what I call spiritual recharge. We are spiritual beings. We ought to put our spirit on fire. What happens around us sometimes kills the fire. Once a while, you need to move into a secluded place, chant up unto God, and let God speak to you. So solitude help us recharge spiritually. Scripture reference, Mark chapter 1, the verse number 35, or Luke chapter 5, the verse number 16, as we've looked at already. The second one is what we call hearing God's voice. Listen, the distractions, as I've already said, are many. Sometimes this thing you are going through, all you need is for God to speak to you. And in the midst of the multitude, God will not speak to you. Separate yourself. Get into a place of solitude and allow God to speak to you. When we turn unto him, he speaks to us. I give you scripture reference, Psalm 46 verse 10 or 1 Kings chapter 19, 11 and 12. Let's look at the 13. Renewed focus and purpose. Renewed focus and purpose. Solitude helps us to focus on God's purpose. That is what solitude will do for you. Luke chapter 6, the verse number 12 of 13. And then the final one, solitude protects us from burnout and exhaustion. Listen, it gets to a time we get weary. It gets to a time we get weak. The only thing that can bring us what we are looking for is solitude. Mark chapter 6, the verse number 31, and then Psalm 62, 1 and 2. I pray that you would begin to see the import of solitude, meaning you will begin to see the import of separating yourself from the crowd and allow God to speak to you. As you learn, put them into practice, and I believe that you'll come back saying that solitude has given me the connection I'm looking for from God. God bless you. I love you, and I'll see you next week.